Bartkowski, under some pressure, swings it out. The wide open man's William Andrews. He gets across at 20, 25. William Andrews breaks away, 40. He's at midfield. Denver territory, 30-yard line. William Andrews is going to go the distance. Andrews, touchdown, Atlanta.
First and 10, 24-yard line. 3:52 remaining in the first half. 49ers now on top, 7-3. Bartkowski, whoa, Andrews, and look at him bounce off.
Oh, my goodness.
Andrews with an open field. And he just refuses to go down until he gets to the 31-yard line. Eric Wright looks like Jim Shoulders, the rodeo cowboy, on his back.
I'll tell you what.
As good an evidence of power running as you will ever see in any game.
This is unreal.
Watch this. Ronnie Lott, who's a great hitter. I mean, you're not going to get somebody who's not a great hit again. By Williamson, bouncing off both of them, and down the field he goes.
Look at that leg power.
Oh, unbelievable.
He should have been stopped for a loss, and he gets all the way down inside the 33-yard line.
I'm JB. This is the Back It Up Binge podcast, and I'm talking with former Atlanta Falcon, William Andrews. William, welcome to the program.
Hey, thank you, Jeff. I appreciate you, buddy.
I appreciate you joining. Thanks so much. We got a lot to talk about. We've talked a lot before we got on. We'll probably talk a lot afterwards. So I'm going to hit you with the first question right out of the gate. Who was your favorite athlete growing up?
Probably Jim Brown.
Okay. Did you ever meet him?
No, never had.
Okay. When you were in high school, did you ever play any other sports, or was football always your focus?
No, I played baseball, basketball. I did that just to actually keep in shape, not being able to run track. I ran track a little bit too as well, but what really got me just in shape was playing the sports that you normally would get in shape for. And that was baseball, basketball, and football.
So you grew up in Georgia. High school back, you scored 61 touchdowns in your career, 4,400 yards rushing. You go to Auburn, you averaged more than 5 yards a carry. You blocked for James Brooks, Joe Cribbs. But you had this reputation early in your career as being a blocking back. How do you think that tag got assigned to you? And how do you describe yourself as a back?
Well, I have to take you back a little bit. When I was in high school, there was a coach by the name of James Bryant. He was under the tutelage of Jake Gaither down at FAMU in Florida. And coach at FAMU, you also say you have to be agile, mobile, and hostile. That was his saying, right? And so that tag was brought with him because he was in the era, James Bryant was in the era of what Jake Gaither was saying. You have to be hostile, mobile, and agile. And it came to me in sort of like a challenge. You're going to be all of these things all at once. Okay. And if you can grasp them all at once, then you pretty much in the mix then. So I'm young, didn't know much, but the fact of the matter is I had strength, size, and I had pretty good speed, right? And so that's what really just got me involved in that type of setup because of him. He was probably the gentleman that did it the most for us. All the black kids back in that area, because that was before integration,
Okay. So how do you describe yourself that way? I mean, that's what you aspired to be and got there?
Well, actually, I didn't really know what I wanted to be. To be honest with you.
Okay.
I just got out there because it was a way to get me off the street. It wasn't out there, with all the things that was going on. I wanted to be involved in some focus that will focus my mind on what I could do for me later in life. So that's what it was. Football was the thing. I did Little League. I did all the way through high school, junior high, and then high school. And then eventually I went to school at Auburn, and that sealed the deal for me right there.
Okay, well, I mentioned to you before we got on that I was watching some old games, and I wrote down some of the ways that they described you. So I wanted to read them to you because they're actually pretty interesting. So there was a game that Madden and Summerall were doing, and Madden says you don't want to have to tackle him when you're tired, and Summerall says you don't want to have to tackle him at all. Then there was a Sports Illustrated article I read about you that said he ran like a bull and blocked like a rhino. I thought that was pretty interesting.
And I like those pretty good taglines right there.
The best one, we'll talk about it in a couple of questions. I'll tell you what Leeman Bennett said about you. But you entered the draft in 79, picked in the third round, 16th running back. Really only 3 compare to you statistically in there, and that's O.J. Anderson, Ted Brown, and Tony Nathan. What was it like for you on draft day getting that call? Were you expecting to go in the draft third round, first round, maybe 10th round?
Well, I was we were in school and I sat around the house and waited for a call to come and didn't call. So I went to class. I had a class I had to go to make sure that I finished on time and that kind of thing. So I left the apartment and went to the class. And shoot, man, by the time I got home, I had some friends of mine that said, "Hey, man, they've been calling you, trying to find you." I said, "Find me for what?" He said, "Man, you just got drafted." I said, "Drafted where?" He said, "Well, Atlanta Falcons drafted you, man." I said, "You got to be kidding me, man." Because I went to school to finish what I needed to do. And I come home later in the afternoon, and the guy said, "Man, where have you been?" I said, "I've been to school." "What you mean where I've been?" I had a class I had to take care of. But anyway, so they said they wanted me to call the Atlanta Falcons. I said, "For what?" He said, "There's a guy by the name of Tom Brotz looking for you." So I said, "God dang it." So I got on the phone to call Brotz. He said, "William." I said, "Yes, sir. How can I help you?" "How can I help you?" Right. So he said, "Well, we just drafted you in the third round." He said, "Are you prepared?" I said, "Well, I wasn't prepared, but I'm glad you called me. How can I help you?" He said, "Well, we need you up here next week because we need to get an interview with you, get you sized and all that kind of stuff for what we're going to have done and that kind of." And all of a sudden, I'm being launched into the spotlight. And I said, "So why did you draft me?" He said, "Because you block so damn well."
There you go. There's the tag again, right?
"And we need somebody like you in the backfield." I said, "Well, I have other skills, but if blocking is what gets me there, I'm there." So that's how it turned out.
Well, it's interesting. I'll bring this one that told you I was going to read this quote because you said about what they were expecting out of you. But I'll tell you what Leeman Bennett said about you. He said that when he drafted you, it was like buying a Cadillac that gets 25 miles to the gallon. And I tell you, a 79th pick, round 3, and what you delivered, that was a steal for them. Great job by them drafting you. So in your Falcons career, the team starts out 6-10 your first year, goes to 12-4, goes in the playoffs, and then the record sort of levels out. What's sort of the explanation from your perspective how the team sort of, after that good rise in 80, you guys sort of flattened out?
Well, I don't think our coaches were ready for it.
Okay.
I'll be honest with you. I don't think they were ready for it because that year we won the West, right? In 1980.
Right.
The next year they cut damn near half the team. That could have started if we had went down. The first team had went down. They could have jumped right in our place and took over, but they didn't do that. They released those guys. And I said, that was one of the stupidest things I've ever seen. I said, what? I said, you got something working for you and you want to dismantle it? That makes no sense to me.
Right.
So we went through that whole process, and all of a sudden, they brought in players that wasn't up to the caliber of the players that they let go. And I said, how do you get your head wrapped around that thing? And I remember I went in the owner office that afternoon, and he said, "William, we're gonna put this tag on you because you got to be the carrier for us." I said, Rankin Smith at the time, he's the owner. And I said, "Well, what tag, sir?" I said, I just enjoy playing with the guys. I have fun with them, and I go out and do my best he said, well, ain't no question about you doing your best for us. He said, but what we need, we're going to tag you because we can't let you get away.
Yeah, franchise
Because,
tag,
you
right?
know, I was up for trade or whatever. And they said, there's no way we're going to let you get away. You're too damn good.
Right.
So I stayed there and went through all of the changes and all that, coaches changes, player changes and all that. And we never could put that caliber of workmanship back together again. We had Wallace Francis, Alfred Jackson, Alfred Jenkins. We had Joel Williams. We had Al Richardson. We had Lynn Kane. We had all these guys that were top in their spots. And man, I mean, there was nothing that could have stopped us based on what we were doing and what the scheme that we had. And all of a sudden, they cut those players that was in second space for us, and they cut them and let them go. And I said, man, there we go. We're downhill now. And they could do nothing to recover it. They tried to draft the guys, but the guys that they drafted didn't have the heart to come play with us.
Well, the record shows exactly what you're saying, right? It never recovered. You talk about coaching. You played for Leeman Bennett the majority of your career. What was he like to play for? What kind of impact did he have on your career?
Well, I don't, the impact that I wouldn't call it an impact. I think it was just because I was, it would call what they call nutrition. And I was the best one they had in the backfield. At the time, they drafted Gerald Riggs, which Gerald came in and helped us a lot. And Lynn Kane was also back there, but Lynn got hurt. So we had nobody else to back up that spot. And then they went through this coaching changes and all like that. Man, that really screwed it up. So I think for us, though, in the 1980, I think our coaches got scared because we were going to bring a championship to Atlanta, and they have never had anything like that before in their lives, right? And they got scared. That's what I believe. They got scared because of the fact that they couldn't hold on to all those guys that could have been starters if the first team went down.
Okay. That's interesting. Later on in your career, Leeman's out, Dan Henning comes in. What was the difference between those two guys as coaches?
That was night and day. It was night and day. It really was. Leeman had this the ilk where I'll take 5 yards in a cloud of dust before I take run and shoot, throwing to the side and all like this and that kind of thing. And that's what he brought to Atlanta. Dan Henning did, run and shoot and that kind of thing, which Bill Walsh had perfected it out in San Francisco.
Right.
But trying to bring it downhill, and also with the Redskins and that kind of thing. We couldn't do the same thing they were doing because those was two different players or two different teams that was playing. And so we had the talent, but we couldn't learn that system because it wasn't in our DNA. Our DNA was to grind it out, beat you up, get you hurt, and all that kind of stuff. And then they got away from that. See, the one thing about me, you understand about me, if it's working for you, why the hell change it? That makes no sense to me. If it works, why change it? Hell, you can build a dynasty. Look at the Dolphins. I mean, just go back and look at the Dolphins for a second. They kept the same guys in the backfield the whole time they were winning those championships, right?
Yeah.
When they went 14-0, that was a feat because guess what? They didn't break up the team. They brought guys in that could help them here, help them there, but they didn't change the whole damn team.
Well, it's interesting you say that because I interviewed Larry Little and I asked him, was the 73 team better than the undefeated team? And he said, yes. And I've heard other Dolphins players say that. But in Atlanta, you had that great team in 80 and they broke it up. Miami kept it and kept that momentum, and they had actually a better team than the undefeated one.
Well, that's the thing. My mom always told me, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
That's exactly right. Exactly right. You head into the 84 season and you get injured. Can you talk a little bit about that injury, what happened, and your comeback?
Well, I was in contract negotiations when that happened, right? They were trying to figure out whether they're going to sign me to a multi-million-dollar contract, or were they going to look at trade me or do anything, but they wasn't going to trade me because I was just too valuable to them at the time. And so the thing that happened was when I got injured, it was just a routine play. I had held out for the contract to be signed and everything. And then I came into practice and got myself together and I made a cut. I was just a routine cut that I made 1,000 times, right? I made a cut. And when I cut, I could feel my knee just buckle. And from that standpoint, that was the end of it. And when they rushed me to Piedmont Hospital downtown. And a young lady by the name of Evie Hunter was the orthopedic. She was a short little white lady that attended me when I got there. She said, "Oh, Mr. Andrews, this is bad," because she said it looked like it looked like an explosion just happened inside your knee.
Wow.
And when she looked at it, she said, "Oh my God, and I had peroneal nerve damage. I had dropped foot. I worked for 18 months just to get the feeling back in the leg and everything else." So I went through what you call Hell's Kitchen at the time because it was just a whole number of things that you had to do to try to get yourself back. But I worked my butt off for 2 summers trying to get myself back. So finally I got well enough that I could come out and showcase what I could do. But then Henning stopped that whole route from coming back, right? Because he said, "We're going to move William to H-back." What the hell are you going to move me to H-back? What the hell is that? I ain't no H-back. I'm a damn fullback. That's what I do. Right? So he got the finagling and this and that, and it just never turned out right. I didn't like the position. I didn't want the position. And so they gave it to Ken Wisenhunt, which went on to coach at the Cardinals and those places like that. So I said, "Nah, that's their speed. That's not my speed." And see, my speed, because I had a winner's heart. I didn't have no loser's heart. And so when you tell me you're going to move me to another position, that's a loser's heart. I got a winning heart. So that's what really culminate me from going to Mr. Smith and say, "Look, I'm out." I told him I'm out. I'm done. I'm not going to do this anymore because I'm not going to be associated with a squad that don't want me as much as I've given to you guys. He said, "Look," he said, "William, I understand." He said, "Look, you've given us everything we've asked of you." And I said, "Well, all I want you to do is to take care of me in my latter years and I can get out of here and we can both leave on great terms." And I've always been on great terms with him and he and his family because they pay me compliments all the time and say, "William, you saved our asses, boy."
It's interesting, William. I read, for those that don't know, it was a 2-year run for you to get back to the NFL. So you missed all of 84 and 85. But I read it in the Sports Illustrated article that you, and I believe it was Alfred Jenkins, were on crutches and brought a bunch of kids down to the mall to buy presents.
Yeah, me and
you were on your crutches, both of you guys.
Yep.
And then what I also read was that there were some kids that didn't get to go, and so when you came back, you brought them back and did it again on crutches.
Yep. Well, see, I had a sense of community because I was involved in it. Everything I did, everything we tried to do back in that era was to bring these kids closer to the game of football and sportsmanship. And that's what we were trying to show, that we are part of the community. We're going to do things in the community and we're going to take care of the youngsters that's in the community. And so with all of that, we put everything we had, even though I was on crutches and that kind of thing, I still had the heart of a champion and I wanted to win. So I won that battle with bringing those kids in to see that say, "Well, hey man, these guys are great, man. They teaching us, they telling us what to do, what not to do and all like that." And then most of them took advantage of it because most of the kids that came after it, they were playing in the league 10 years after we had left. And I said, "God dang, these guys are we really had an impact on these kids." And so we don't do it like we used to, but we still doing it. We're not doing it the way we did it, but they still do it.
I've actually had an ACL surgery, and I know not to your level what it takes to get back. You said you had a heart of a champion. Was there ever any doubt that you'd ever make it back?
No. The doubt came in with the coaches. The doubt didn't come in with the player because I put in the work in order to get back, right? And then when you put in that kind of work to get back, but then again, you get snubbed at the top. Well, where are you going to go?
Right.
You now I feel like I'm dead weight and I'm being disrespected. So guess what? If you can't respect what I've done for this club, then you let me go, because there may be other things that I would like to do if it's not going to work here.
No, that's a fair point. And just one more question on this. I don't want to focus on your injury, but you put the time in, you get back. And I've always wondered about guys that come back from like a major injury. That first game back, what was going through your head? Was I just need to get this first hit under my belt, or did you even think about it?
Well, yeah, you do, because it's just like butterflies, right?
Okay.
You gain those, right? When you know you don't know the unknown, when you get out there and test it, right? You test it in practice, you need in practice to make sure that you can do it. You run routes because what you used to do it in terms, you may not do it as good as you used to, but you get to the point where you at least 95%, that's where you need to be, right?
Okay.
But they wouldn't even give me the 95% so I could get out and test it. So I think the one game that we played was against the Cardinals. And they put me in to William get in. And so I ran like a 31 dive and I scored. And I got up and all the guys were around me. Man, they was picking me up, cheering me,
That's
just
awesome.
hugging on me and everything else. And hell, that was worse than guys falling on you. Them big old guys are hugging on you and shaking me. And I said, God dang, man, y'all gonna hurt me again. Get away from me. So,
that's great.
But I knew it was out of love that they was doing that, because they wanted to see me come back.
Yeah.
Because they had been watching me in practice and said, God dang, hey, he ain't far off. Hey, he still can knock the hell out of you. They said, so he ain't lost nothing. He said he may be limping a little bit, but God dang, man, he still got it.
I tell you, my PT told me, my physical therapist told me that the two worst things that people get operated for, guys, are your ACL and your rotator cuff. So I have all the respect for you for 2 years to make it back. Wow. So there's a couple of plays that people sort of look to you. There's one play where you were playing the Broncos. It was like an 80-yard. Bartkowski threw it to you in the flat. You took it 80 yards. But the one I wanted to ask you about was another one that I played in the intro. You're playing the Niners on Monday night. And I'm sure I'm sure see, you're laughing now. Everybody asks you about this play because it is just an unbelievable play. So people have to go back and watch this intro and actually listen to the hit too. So I said to you on the phone the other day that Bartkowski sort of set you up to get hit, right? Because it literally was hike and like a 2.5 step and he flares it to you. And next thing you know, Ronnie Lott is right up on top of you and you just plowed him over. And then to make matters worse for the Niners, you go through 5 guys and just leave them in the dust, right? And then the one thing that they eventually track you down, it's Eric Wright. You have like an escort going to the end zone, and then all of a sudden, out of the side of the shot, there's Eric Wright. Alfred Jenkins got outrun and he didn't put the block on him. So talk to him about that.
Right.
But then something happened too at the end on that play that we talked about before we got on, the rule differences. Eric Wright horse collared you.
Yeah, he did.
Pulled you down, and no flags. He horse. So talk a little bit about that play. Did you ever talk to Ronnie Lott after that play about it, and just walk everybody through that play, because it is unbelievable play.
What happened is that whenever I come up to the line of scrimmage, right, I always look and see who got me in coverage or whatever, right. So we ran the little flare routes just to give we had a saying, save a sack, dump it to the back, right? So
it's a great one.
So we would flare out and be in a position to catch it, because it's a check down. It's just like a check down, and we could get 3 or 4 yards at a minimum if you do it right. But I was subject to get more than that if they did it to me, because they know the reputation I had. If no one guy is going to bring him down, y'all can forget that. Actually, that's not what happened. So he said, so Bart called this particular play, and my job was to flare out to wait for any offshoots that were coming, because the linebackers did an end stunt where the tackle went in and then the linebacker scraped, but just so happened Ronnie Lott scraped because he was the strong safety. And then when he saw me, I said, here he comes. So when I caught the ball, the only thing I could do was jump in a ball. And when you got all of your thing, when you got yourself wrapped up in a ball, they got nothing to grab a hold of. And so he had nothing to grab a hold of, but he hit me, but he didn't follow through. Right. But I followed through on him, and I knocked him down and then went on about another 45, 50 yards. Right. And that's when all the chaos got. But hell, I was tired. I wasn't the fastest thing on the field, but hey, occasionally I run somebody, you know what I'm saying? But he jumped on my back, and Eric horse collared me. I said, "You sorry, dog."
He did horse collar you, but it's funny you say you were tired on that play. When you look at the other play against the Broncos, you went 80 yards after you ran over that defender. I forget who it was, but you actually fell in the end zone on your back. You were gassed.
Because look at it now. Look at it, right? You up a mile high, right?
Yeah, that's a good point. I forgot.
Okay, mile high, really? You mile above sea level?
Yeah. And
you can't breathe? Yeah. Oh, man, I'll tell you a little story about that, right, Jeff? Like, trust me, we get there, right? And we get in the locker room ready to change our uniform, get out our dress clothes and get into it. And then guess what? My shoulder pads wouldn't fit.
Ooh.
Okay, my helmet wouldn't work. And I said, my pants are too small. But what I didn't realize, if you're a mile above sea level, everything swells.
Oh, I didn't know that.
All right. Okay.
Wow.
So everything swells. You get larger, your head get bigger, your helmet gets small. See, the equipment don't change, but you do.
No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. I didn't know that. Wow.
Yeah. You're a mile above sea level. And everything expands out there when you're a mile above, because your body's trying to get more air. It's trying to expand your rib cage so you can get the wind that you need to have in order to do what you got to do, right? So guess what? I walked in and I said, Whitey, that was a equipment guy. I said, what happened to my damn pants, man? They won't fit. He said, Andrews, he said, look, you in Denver, you're a mile high above sea level, and everything grows, right? I said, you mean to tell me I grew? He said, yeah, you bigger than what you was before you got out of here.
Oh, that's funny.
So, long story short, they had to bring out new uniform for me. They had to give me new shoulder pads and everything. Now, the interesting thing, though, at halftime, my body had got used to the atmosphere, right? And my clothes started falling off of me because I got used to.
Oh, that is great.
I had got used to the climate, right? And so I went back to my original uniform, and it fit just great. My helmet started fitting and it said, that's what you got now. If you really want to know what an airhead is, go out there and play football for 2 quarters. Now that's really an airhead. That really an airhead right there. Now, trust me.
Did you ever talk to Ronnie Lott about that play? Did you joke around about it with him, or never talked to him?
He and I were serious guys. Ronnie, one of the best players I think that I could ever come up against. In his day, he told me that he was a running back. He played offense. He was running back, and he said, "Look, William," he said, "Man, I never gone against anybody as tough as you." He said, "Man, you are tough." I said, "Well, man, you are too." And I said, "Look, man, I hope I didn't hurt you." He said, "No, well," he said, "but you jolted me pretty good." But here's the thing. We were always friends. We never were enemies and that kind of thing. He had a job to do. I had a job to do. Right. And so that's what we worked. And in the end, I wished him well. He wished me well. But the gentleman that I had the most admiration for was Roger Craig.
Right.
Roger Craig, that's with San Francisco. Man, he said, Will, he said, look, man, he said, I tried to pattern my running style after you. I said, what you mean? He said, man, the way you pick your knees up and that kind of thing, man, he said nobody want to touch those knees. He's got if you hit somebody with one of those knees, you're gonna knock them out. So
you go ahead. I'm sorry.
And so he just said, he said, look, he said, man, I aspire to be somebody like you. And I said, man, I mean, that's great to hear, man. I said, look, all you got to do is keep doing what you're doing because you got it. I said, you have it, buddy. You're going to be something. And when they won those back-to-back Super Bowls, that kind of thing, and Roger was carrying that football, man, he was knocking guys out just because he saw the knee action that I was doing when I was running with the football.
Well, as a Dolphins fan, I don't like Roger Craig. But that's a whole nother story, right?
Yeah.
But it's interesting. Like, I never like to compare players to other players, but when I've watched your highlights, I see the high leg kick now with Roger Craig, some of the plays you had. I tell you, the two guys, and I don't know, I think you're older than one of them, but the two guys that came to mind, especially on those two plays that we talked about, was Earl Campbell, because you ran through people. Yeah. And for some reason, I see when you're going down the field full speed, for some reason I see a little Herschel Walker. I don't know why.
Well, Herschel didn't have the finesse I had.
He was pure north-south.
Yeah, that's all he. That's what he was. No, great athlete. Don't get me wrong. Great athlete and a hell of a running back, right?
Right.
Heisman Trophy winner and everything like that. Because they ran him every play they could, and he had the strength and the speed. Because he back in the day, his sister used to outrun him. See, his sister was faster than he was. So I seen him in track meets and all that kind of stuff, and I said, God dang, that joker right there can fly.
Yeah.
And he could. And my hat off to him and what he's done in college and the NFL and USFL and all like that. He came up through the ranks, and he came and played at Dallas. So he came up through the ranks, and trust me, he earned his stripes. Trust me, he earned them.
He did. So we talked about you laying the hit on Ronnie Lott and the guy on Denver. Has anybody done that to you? And who was the toughest defender or defenses that you ever went up against?
Well, I'm gonna tell you this little story, and don't let it get out, okay? But I got my bell rung up in Green Bay.
Okay.
It was cold as cold as the Dickens up there, right? Cleats wouldn't even go into the ground. The grass was the grass in the ground was so hard you couldn't even penetrate the dang the field, right? That's how cold it was, right?
Right.
And so Johnny Gray, the defensive back, I had caught a flat pass and I was going around left side, and all of a sudden I was getting ready to step out of bounds, and I didn't. I didn't step out of bounds quick enough, but it would have been a flag back in the day. That today it would have been, but back then it wouldn't. He hit me under the chin, man, and the first thing hit was my head. My feet went up in the air, man. The first thing that hit was my head, man. And I got up and thought I was going back to our huddle, but I wound up in damn Green Bay's huddle.
Wow.
So the trainers came out and got me. I said, well, what's going on? I'm going back. He said, no, you got to come out for me. So they drugged me to the sideline, and I said, well, what happened? He said, you got the hell knocked out of you, right? So they gave me two Epsom, ammonia tablets, right? I took one, didn't do nothing. I took another, didn't do anything. On the third one, they snatched me back. I said, what happened? He said, you got the hell knocked out of you. So I said, well, who did it? They said, Johnny Gray. Man, I chased that joker all night for a whole 2 quarters. I must have lost 14 pounds chasing that song.
Did you ever get him?
I was going to get him back, but it never happened. But I said, I'll never, ever put myself in a position like that ever again. So now it doesn't matter if you're going to hit me or try to hit me. I got something for you, because that's made me the ruthless player that I was, because that was not going to happen to me ever again. And I look them up now. I looked them up. Every game I played, I was looking for them to come up and do something like that, because I had a forearm ready for them.
There you go. So I want to ask you a question before I get to the bigger question. So I'm going to set this up and I think this is going to be a long discussion, but
Okay.
what, in your opinion, is a Hall of Fame player?
The biggest thing I think is contribution.
Okay.
What contribution did you make to the league that you were playing for? And what did you exemplify while you was in there doing it?
Okay.
And that's what I believe. I believe you have to be, just like Brother Gaither said, you have to be agile, mobile, and hostile. And I think I was all of those things put into one package. My coach that I told you in high school, James Bryant, really instilled that in me. He said, son, you could be greatest thing that ever if you keep that attitude you got. And I've never forgotten it. The fact of the matter is that the hostility that the game itself was and the mobility that you had to have in order to elude players that were trying to hurt you and you trying to hurt them, they were all coming after you. So you build a reputation of, well, this guy is a monster. Y'all better get ready for him. And I remember in the high school days when I played Valdosta and all those teams like that, I only played half. I only played a half. I never played a whole game.
Really?
Yeah, I never played a whole game. And so they take me out at halftime and say, "Look, sit down. You done."
Wait a minute. You got taken out at half basically in some of your games. You still had 4,400 yards and 61 TDs in high school.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and that's serious. I wouldn't lie to you about that. You can go back and check the records. I'm telling you.
Wow.
We played Valdosta, which is one of the top schools in South Georgia, and Bazemore was the coach down there at the time, and he was undefeated in terms of his dynasty of Valdosta winning all the state championship and everything until they met me. I changed that whole thing around. Or we did, to put it like that.
Right.
We're talking about me, but we changed that whole scenario around, and we beat them 40-0. And at halftime, I had 176 yards, and they told me to sit down.
Well, I didn't know that. That is unbelievable. I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah. So if you go back and look at and talk to people that back in that era that knew me back then, they said it was not uncanny for us to be at our home field on Friday night that we have more than 7,000-8,000 people at the game. That's just how. That's just, and they were coming from Florida. They were coming from Bainbridge. They was coming from Cairo. They were coming from Albany. They was coming from around the Southeast. They said, no, we're going to watch Thomasville tonight. They got a kid down there, man, that's off the chain.
Right. So let me read a couple things, and then I'll give you the question, right? So you gained 1,000 yards your rookie season. 4 of the first 5 seasons, you rushed for more than 1,000. The only reason why you didn't hit it one of those seasons was the strike shortened season, but if you run the numbers, you were on pace to do 1,000.
Yeah.
Just under 6,000 yards in your career. This is one of my favorite stats I always look at is efficiency. Yards per carry, 4.6. And here's the kicker with your career. 277 receptions, 41 total touchdowns. This is the key here. You were a 3-down back. You never left the field. So I'm going to ask you a question. Are you a Hall of Famer?
I feel like I am.
Okay.
Even though I'm not there, but I feel like I am because I've made a contribution to the league itself in number one, true ability, number 2, dedication, and 3, an athlete that you could always look up to because I wasn't out there running the street and doing all this kind of craziness and that kind of thing.
I think you're hurt a little bit because of that knee injury, right? That shortened your career. But the thing I don't understand is, from my perspective, you have this bell curve of a player's career, right? So if you're too short, you're at the front end. If you're too long, they call you an accumulator, right? So where in the meat of the bell curve do you say, all right, William had 8,000 yards. You played for 9 years, carried it 4.5, 60 touch, whatever the numbers are. Where do you draw that line? And no one could ever answer that. And to me, watching you back when you played, you were one of my favorite players. I've told you that. you were a Hall of Fame player. I looked at some of the stats. In '79, you were ranked 12th. That was your rookie season, 1,000 yards. You get fourth in 1980, and you're behind Earl Campbell, Peyton, and Otis Anderson. 81, you were seventh. And then in 1983, your big year, you were second to Eric Dickerson's 1,500 yards. He fumbled twice as much as you, by the way. He had 13. You only put it on the carpet 6 times. So,
right.
But to me, that to me is you had a Hall of Fame career and you got hurt by maybe your injury, but that shouldn't deter people from looking at you saying this guy dominated and he was a Hall of Fame player.
No, but look at it this way, though. Look at it this way for a second, Jeff. Okay. What they did was they put all of us in one category.
Right.
I was a true fullback. I wasn't a tailback. I was none of those things.
Mm-hmm.
I was in a 3-point stand my whole career. Okay.
That's right.
And the only fullback that I know of that had the numbers that I had was Larry Zonka. He was the last fullback to go into the NFL. Now they had a kid out in San Francisco that was a fullback, and he had no numbers like I had. He had no touchdowns like I had. He had no career like I had, but they put him in the Hall of Fame as a fullback. Okay. So what they did was, what the league did was lump all of us together as running backs. I said I wasn't a running back. I was a fullback. I lined up 3 yards behind the quarterback, and that's where I stayed most of my career. So how are you going to all of a sudden now distinguish between a tailback and a fullback, but you never do that because you took the fullback out of the equation.
That's right.
That's all they got now is running back. That's what they call it. You see, the NFL is not stupid, okay? They're not stupid because the fact that if they could squunch it down and just get running backs, just quarterbacks, and just wide receivers, not tight ends, but wide receivers, right? So they're going to lump you in with the tailback because that's what you ran like. But I was a true fullback. I wasn't a tailback. I was a true fullback. That was my plight, and that was my game.
Yeah, see, people look at Otis Anderson. You came out of the same draft as him, and he had 10,000 yards. But when you look at his career, he's one of those guys that played 10, 15 years.
Yeah.
The bulk of his stats were with St. Louis.
Right.
Right. So he was top heavy on the front end of his career. Still did great things on the back end. I mean, the whole Super Bowl.
No question about it.
But to me, in the condensed period of time you played, that was a Hall of Fame player. And I read you what people said about you. Those are only 2 or 3 comments I found. You could go to any YouTube game of the Falcons, get to one of your first 2 or 3 carries and listen to the commentators, what they say. You had the respect of the commentators, the NFL. You're a Hall of Famer, in my opinion. I don't have any say in it.
Well, we don't. So I asked a question. One night. We had the Black College Hall of Fame here in Atlanta, downtown at the Marriott.
Okay.
And the gentleman was there from the Hall of Fame that was representing all of the black colleges and that kind of thing. And I said, so why did y'all change the rules that a fullback is a running back now, but he was a fullback in the position when he came into the league, but he had to still, the only last fullback y'all put in was Larry Zonka. I said, I had numbers better than Larry Zonka, but because he won the Super Bowl, went 18-0, so guess what? I understand that part, but I said, you still can't negate the work that I did when I was a fullback playing for the Atlanta Falcons, but you want to lump me in with the running backs. I did different things than tailbacks. I didn't do the same thing they did. So I was a blocker, runner, pass catcher, and defender. If I had
never came off the field. You got to keep that in mind. Right. Never came off the field.
That's right. That's right. Because I had the hands, I had the wherewithal to make a guy miss me. I could run with any of them out there that was out there. I could catch any kind of traffic and that kind of thing. But you telling me that's not an all-around player that you would look at something like that? He said, well, Mr. Andrews, unfortunately, they changed the rules. I said, you're right, they did.
So I have heard, and in my last episode, I talked to Stu Boyd about Chuck Foreman. He talked about, you have a sort of a campaign for a player to help them get in the Hall. Have the Falcons ever done anything for you? Have you ever approached them?
No, and I won't.
Okay.
I won't, because there's an old gospel sing. There's a gospel song that say, "For the work I've done, I'll let it speak for me."
Okay.
May the work I've done speak for me. That's it.
I'm not going to argue with a Bible verse or a gospel verse, but I will say this. I have this conversation with my buddies all the time when it comes to, the business world. And, as a finance guy, you tend to just do your thing. And to your point, let people judge you by your results.
Correct.
But the problem with that is everybody has to have a little salesperson in them, because the squeaky wheel is the one who gets the oil, right?
Yeah.
So, I will say this, William, for what it's worth, the last week that we've sort of been talking, getting ready for this, there have been people, like someone today posted on Twitter, name a Falcons player that people maybe don't know about or forgot about. And I put the intro of this episode out there for you, because people do forget. And that's part of the reason why I like doing these things, to bring people like you back into the conversation. And again, for what it's worth, I'd be curious if people watch this and put comments in the comment section. I think you're a Hall of Famer and should at least be in the conversation at a minimum. So for what it's worth, I believe that. You ended your career. Talk a little bit about what you've done post-career.
Well, my post career, I've done a lot of things for some friends of mine that had different entities that I used to help them out and that kind of thing, because of my popularity in Atlanta and that kind of thing. And I've done pretty well in the that type of setup. But now I'm in another whole different arena now. I've got a big project I'm working on right now that I'm not at privy to say right now, but it's going to be something that's going to change the world. What I'm doing right now. And
good for you.
I got this vision, I got this dream one night, and I got up and I wrote the complete business plan. And I talked to a lot of people about it and looked at it and that kind of thing. He said that we never seen anything like this. I said, yeah, but it came from the divine one, so you ain't going to see nothing like this. And so I'll be bringing that out here in the next few months. And you'll hear about it. Matter of fact, I hope you have me back so we can discuss it. And that way you'll see exactly what I didn't want to say anything about it going forward.
Well, yeah, I'm going to hold you to that, William. You got to at least shoot me an email and say, this is what it was. And I'll take a look at it and give you my thoughts. So let's close it out. This has been just an absolute joy for me. I'm going to put you on the binge burner, I call it. I'm going to give you about 4 or 5 of your teammates, and then tell me, we'll play a speed round. What comes to your mind, or describe them when I give you their names. So number 1, 12-year career, Steve Bartkowski.
One of the best quarterbacks I ever played with.
Okay. Alfred Jenkins.
Man that had a heart of a stallion.
Do you know he had 103 games in a row with a catch?
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. I forgot about him, to be honest with you. But 9-year career, 360 receptions, 40 TDs, 103 games in a row. Just a phenomenal career. Jeff Van Note.
Anchor.
Okay.
He was the anchor for us when we were winning 1980. He was the anchor.
Mike Ken.
For a guy his size and his lankiness, the best I've ever seen.
So what's interesting, let's go back to the Hall of Fame discussion. These are 2 guys. Van Note, 18 years, 246 games, 6 Pro Bowls. Mike Ken, 17-year career, 251 games, 5 Pro Bowls, 2 All-Pros. Neither of them are in the Hall.
Makes no sense.
Makes no sense.
If I can just back up a little bit with you. See, they had a guy here in Atlanta by the name of Furman Bishop that didn't like the owner of the Falcons, which was Rankin Smith at the time, Rankin Smith Sr. And he hated the Falcons. He hated how Rankin got the team in the whole 9 yards. But he never would give us the proper write-ups in the paper and that kind of thing. Newspapers sell. So guess what? spread salt all over the place on us.
Right.
And so that's why we didn't get the recognition we should have had going through, because he was part of the vote that who goes in the hall and who doesn't
there
go
you
in the
go.
hall.
Yeah, there you go. All right,
and look, one thing you find out from me, Jeff, I'm going to tell you the truth. I ain't going to lie to you because I've been there. I saw it for myself.
That's why I enjoy talking to you all the time, because it's a great conversation and it's honest and straightforward. Now, I picked one more guy to talk to you about because, you know, it was always the NFL films that this guy came up with and he basically, if I think about it, may have been the one that invented the end zone celebration dance, and that's Billy White Shoes Johnson.
Oh, and man, it's funny you should mention Billy. Billy, great friend. I love him. The story on Billy, right, when he was drafted in the league, and he was at Houston Oilers, right? He had they wouldn't let him wear white shoes, right? So every time it was time for him to do a punt return, he had to bring his white shoes on the field with him, and he go and change when they're getting ready to punt, and he put his white shoes on. And that's why they call Billy White Shoes Johnson. That's how he got his name.
I never knew that. That is a great. I never knew that. Wow.
That's how he got his name, Billy White Shoes Johnson. That's what. And so Howard Cosell used to call me Billy Andrews, right? And I told him about my mother. I said, my mother don't like that, Howard. You know, she shouldn't call me William Billy Andrews. My name was William Andrews. That's what she called me by. So that's what I want to go by. Right. So one Monday night we were playing. I forget the team we were playing, and I broke a long one and that kind of thing. And he said, "Well," Howard Coach said, "Well, there he goes. There he goes. Number 31 for the Falcons. His name is William. Don't call me Billy Andrews."
Oh, that is funny. That is great.
And so we were at the Pro Bowl, and I told Howard that story. She said, "William, I'll never do it again." And he never did.
That's great. Let's leave it on a high note, William. Thank you so much for coming on. Absolutely enjoyed talking to you before, during, and we'll talk again after. And make sure you keep in contact with me and tell me your venture that you're doing. I'm really interested in learning about it.
Yeah, I sure will, buddy. Thank you so much for having me. And to your audience, tell them thank you for all the great years of watching. And we are still around. We may not be visible, but we're still around.
Absolutely. Thanks again so much. Thank you, everybody.